so when we now start to increase the complexity of our algebraic expressions and simplifying them, what we need to remember is that there's going to be, or we need to be careful or mindful of our order of work. Okay, so when I say order of work, what I mean is BODMAS. I say order of work, BODMAS doesn't really matter. But you have to be very, very careful that you are doing all of your simplification in the correct order. Because if you don't, it means that you are just talking absolute nonsense and you are not simplifying correctly. So there's 3 steps that if we follow these 3 steps, you will simplify correctly by following order of work. Excuse me. So the very, very first step, or the very, very first thing that we want to do is we want to identify the terms in our expression. Now remember, we identify terms by looking at plus or minus signs oh, excuse me, in the expression, but we ignore any plus or minus. That's not how you spell ignore, is it? No. We ignore any plus or minus sign inside brackets or in fractions. So if it's in a fraction or if it's a plus or minus sign inside a bracket, we ignore it. Okay, that is not separating terms for us. So if we look at this expression, this plus inside the bracket, I'm going to ignore. Excuse me. This minus 7, I'm going to ignore because it's inside a bracket. The only sign I actually care about is this negative, and that's separating my expression. Okay. So what that means is that I have got 2 terms in this expression, the 3 times the bracket x plus 5, and my second term is the minus 4 times the bracket 3x minus 7. Oh, sorry, everyone. Oh, it's chaos. My whole breathing system has failed me here. So once we have identified our terms, we can now move on to our second step. Our second step is going to involve looking at these terms and figuring out how do we simplify them. So step number 2 is simplify each term individually. This is going to take into account our order of work. So simplify each term. Okay. So we do this term by term. If, guys, if you are comfortable and you can look at that and you automatically know what your distribution is, you don't have to do the working out on the side like I'm going to do. But if you aren't, rather do a little bit of rough working out so that you are confident and comfortable with what you have. Okay, so if we look at term number 1 was the 3 times the bracket x plus 5. According to that, for me to simplify this term, I need to use distribution. So distribution, guys, is multiplication. I need to distribute the coefficient into the bracket. So I've got 3 times x and 3 times positive 5. 3 times x, nice and easy, 3x, and 3 times positive 5, 15. So this first term simplifies to 3x plus 15. Now we go and have a look at our second term. Remember, we're doing each term individually. Our second term is negative 4 times the bracket 3x minus 7. So again, we're multiplying the coefficient negative 4 into the bracket. Now, guys, the second is a negative. We need to be very careful about our signs. So we've got a negative 4 times positive 3x and a negative 4 times negative 7. I'm just putting it in brackets because I need to be careful of the signs. We know that a negative times a positive is a negative. 4 times 3 is 12. And then we have the x. In the next distribution, negative times a negative is a positive. And 4 times 7 is 28. So when we go and simplify the second term, I end up with negative 12x plus 28. So we identify our terms, we simplify each of these terms. Now the simplification of the terms, just to give you a little reminder, that is going to involve things like distribution, like we've just done here. It obviously depends on the question, but these are what you look out for: distribution, any exponents that you might have to deal with, and any fractions or division. That is what you're looking out for in the second step. Those are the things that you need to do. Because if you think about it, according to BODMAS, we have to do multiplication, exponents, and division first. Once we have simplified each of our individual terms, we now move on to our final step, which involves us adding or subtracting like terms. Now, we did a lot of like term work on Monday, so hopefully we know what we're doing. I will remind you, obviously. So add or subtract like terms, that's the very last thing that we do. Remember, guys, like terms have the same variable or groups of variables, as well as, oh, I'm running out of space, the same exponents. So as long as those things are the same, you have got like terms. So grab your highlighter, grab your colored pen, whatever you want to do, and let's highlight. So we've got an x term, 3x, and the other x term that we have is the negative 12x. Those are like terms. We've grouped them together. Moving on, we see we've got the constants, plus 15 and plus 28. So I have grouped my like terms. Again, I've said this to you before, if it's more comfortable or if you find it easier to first write the like terms next to each other before you go and add or subtract, that is absolutely fine. You haven't changed anything. All you've done is you've put like terms right next to each other so that you know exactly what it is you are adding or subtracting. So now we do that. 3x minus 12x is, whoopsie daisies, negative 9x. 15 plus 28, 43. Remember, guys, you always just double check to make sure you don't have any like terms left. I don't. X and a constant are not like terms, so I can't do anything with that. And so I've simplified my expression. So if you can follow these 3 steps, identify your terms, simplify each term, and then add or subtract your like terms, you can simplify your expressions. Doesn't matter how complicated they get, you can do it. So take a screenshot. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to raise your hand. I saw that there were a few people struggling to see the screen. I'm hoping we're all sorted. If not, let us know, but hopefully we're all good. Otherwise, guys, questions, raise your hand. Now is the time. Motabang?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
So here, ma'am, when if they are integers, we have to multiply with -4, also with -7, and also 3x.
Excellent, exactly. So we take the number in front with its sign, positive or negative, and we multiply. Exactly, good.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Good. So guys, that's a really important point. So like Motabangs just said, if that coefficient, so like in the second term, it's -4, that negative is 4 with sign. It has to stay with it. So we are distributing, or we are multiplying -4 into the bracket. Alrighty. Let's have a look at another one. So I want you guys to try question B for me. I want you to try this one. It's basically the same thing as what we just did in A. So actually what I'll do is I will leave A up, so you've still got the steps. It's pretty much the same thing. I want you to try. Put your answers in the chat. Once we've got some answers, we'll go through it, but give it a try. Remember those 3 steps. You are simplifying. So 3 steps again: identify your terms, simplify each term, and then you can add or subtract your like terms. And guys, remember, like terms, same variable, same exponent. And again, don't rush the working out. If you need to do the rough working, if you need to have space on the side, do it. There is no point in trying to do everything quickly and making silly mistakes. Oh, my nose. Yes, remember answers on the chat when you've got them. Let me give you, let's say, another minute or two. Keep those answers coming, grade 8s. I'm going to give you another minute. Well, 30 seconds. Okay, let's have a look. All right, so remember we're following our steps. So the very first thing we're wanting to do is we are wanting to identify our terms. I can't remember what colors I was using. We're just going to roll with it. So term 1, term 2. That minus sign is separating our terms. Once we've done that, we want to simplify each of our terms. Now, again, if you need a little multiplication block, do it. If you don't, that's also absolutely fine. Don't try and rush working out, rather get it right. So for our first term, we've got 6 times 5x minus 12. We need to distribute 6 into the bracket. 6 times 5x, 6 times negative 12. Be careful, the second you see a negative, you need to be careful when you multiply. So 6 times 5 is 30, and then we've got that x, so we've got a 30x, apparently a 3, whatever that is, 30x. And then we've got 6 times negative 12. A positive times a negative is a negative, and 6 times 12 is 72. So we've got minus 72. Our second term is negative 9 being distributed into the bracket 2x minus 3. So we're multiplying. Negative 9 times a positive 2x gives us negative 18x. Again, be careful of your signs. And negative 9 times a negative 3, negative times a negative is a positive. 9 times 3, 27. That's our second step. Third step, identify our like terms. So we've got x terms, the 30x and the minus 18x. And then we've got constant terms. Those constant terms being negative 72, positive 27. If you need to, write your like terms next to each other so that you can add or subtract them easily. If you don't need to, that's also fine. It's up to you. Just make sure you remember all of the terms. Okay, so 30x minus 18x, positive 12x. And we need to be careful here, guys, and your English. When you are adding or subtracting and you're not 100% sure, get your calculator. Even if it says no calculator, just double check yourself with your calculator. So negative 72 plus 27, you're sitting way over on your negative side of your number line, and you're not adding enough to get positive. So this answer has to be negative, and it is negative 45. 5. These aren't like terms, can't do anything else. I have simplified completely. So I saw pretty much everyone got that. There were 1 or 2 that had 2x, but I'm assuming you maybe just forgot the 1. I'm hoping, but if not, hopefully we understand. So guys, take your screenshots. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to have a look at another one. And now I've got hiccups as well to just add to everything. Alexander?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
I was just curious why you put the 27, it was like a plus and then the 27. I thought it was minus.
Okay, sorry, I just had to follow there. So if you go, I mean, you can look wherever, but if we have a look at the original question, the distribution that we're needing to do is -9 times -3. So when you're multiplying a negative with a negative, you end up with a positive. So that's
Okay, then it makes positive. Okay.
good. Well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so guys, again, what's going to happen is that it's not that you can't do these questions. You all can do them. It's we make silly mistakes. Okay, so like in the last lesson, my brain, for whatever reason, said 6 times -12 was -36. I know it's not. I know it's -72. I made a silly mistake. So we just always need to be double checking ourselves, always need to be making sure that we are 100% happy with what we've got so that we can get the correct answer. Okay, but let's have a look at C. Now, C is a little bit different in that it is one where we often make a mistake. So I'm going to do it with you, and then I'm going to give you one to try by yourselves. First step, identify terms. Now, guys, remember, we don't care about plus or minus signs inside a bracket or a fraction, so I don't care about that minus. I care about this negative. That negative is telling me that there is a split in terms, which actually means that here, my first term is 4, and my second term is the -6 times the bracket. Now, what a lot of people do, the mistake that people make, is they say, okay, cool, I know that 4 minus 6 is -2. They get -2 and they distribute. That is incorrect. That is wrong. They are separate terms. You need to keep them separate. You can't just do whatever you want. We have to follow the order of work correctly. So we've identified our terms. Step number 2, simplify each term. Now, term 1 is 4. Can't do anything with that. There's no distribution. There's no exponent. There's no fraction. 4 is 4. So I don't actually need to simplify this first term at all. It stays 4. But I can very clearly see that I'm going to have to simplify the second term because I've got distribution. So I've got the -6 times the 2 times the a minus 2. So first thing, 6 times your -6 times a negative times a positive is a negative. Sorry, I don't know what's happening. And 6 times a -6a. So from the second term, I'm simplifying, I'm distributing to get -6a, and then -6 times -2, positive 12. So that second term, I simplify. Once I've done that, I move on to my final third step, which is identify like terms. So 4 and 12 are constants. They are like terms with each other. This -6a is a group all by itself. It's got an a in it. It needs to be grouped with a. We can now add and subtract our like terms. If you need to write them next to each other in order to do that, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to, but you can. And so we get 4 plus 12 is 16 minus 6a. So guys, like I say, the mistake that we make is that we say 4 minus 6 first. That is wrong. They are separate terms. We need to keep them separate. Only by doing that will we correctly simplify our expression. So I'm going to give you one like this to try, but before we do that, if anyone has any questions, please ask. Otherwise, I'm going to give you one like this that I want you to try. just gone from bad to worse. I'm sorry, everyone. Wonder Wonke? Wonder Wonke, you there? Is anyone hearing Wonder Wonke, or is it just okay? Asipile? Asipile, are you there? Okay, Asipile, I'm just getting background noise, so try type your message in your question in the chat. Otherwise, we'll try again. Just now, Christian.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, ma'am, why do you move the 12 to 4, like saying 4 plus 12?
Okay, so you don't have to do that. Some people like to just put their like terms together. So what you can see is that the 4 and the 12 aren't next to each other, even though they're like terms. So what some people like to do is they like to group or write together their like terms and then add or subtract. You don't have to do that. Personally, I don't do that. If you want to, you can, but there's no need to. It's up to you.
Okay, ma'am. Now,
Cool. Alrighty, stand up.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Ma'am, I just wanted to ask, if this was an algebraic equation, would it be 4 minus 6 or will it change somehow? I don't know if you get me.
So if I don't know, for example, this was, oh, and then I've got a highlighter going on here. Please cooperate. So if, for example, this said, I don't know, equals 7.
Not really. Like if we said 4 minus 6 equals to -2 in an algebraic equation, will it be possible, or rather, will you do it the same method as we do it in an algebraic expression?
Okay, I think I get what you mean. So if this exact thing, 4 minus 6 times a minus 2 and then equal something was in an equation, you would still have to do it like this. So we'd still have to just distribute the -6 before we can start solving. But if it's just numbers, so if it was if it was 4 minus 6 equals -2, then yeah, you can just do the subtraction. But the second there's that bracket there, we need to distribute first, even if it's an equation.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so guys, that's a good question that we are actually going to deal with when we start talking about equations next week. We're going to deal with how we distribute in equations. So keep it in the back of your head. Umpumelelo? There should be a pop-up to unmute yourself. I don't know if I clicked it. There we go. There you go. Oh, I unmuted you. I'm so sorry. That was me. Try again. I'm so sorry. There you go.
Hey, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, why are we adding instead of minusing to 4 plus 12? Like, ma'am, why are we adding 4 plus 12?
Can you say it
instead
again
of
for me? Sorry. Oh,
why are we
so when you say why we're adding, do you mean the addition over here, that 4 plus 12?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're adding it because when we did the distribution over here, the -6 times -2 gave us +12, which means that we now had to say whatever that constant was, which was 4 plus 12. So from the distribution, it became positive.
Oh, thanks, ma'am.
Okay, good. Sorry, I muted you. I'm clearly confused tonight. Alrighty, grade 8s. So let us try one, or you are going to try one by yourselves. So I'm going to write it on the side here. Let's do this so you can still see that question. So I want you to try this one by yourselves. No, I don't actually like that. Sorry, let me change that. Let's do. Okay, so try that one with the star by yourselves. I'll put a little blocky around it. So this one in the red rectangle, that is what I want you to try by yourselves. And put your answers in the chat when you're ready. I've left question C up just so that you can have an idea of what's going on because they're quite similar. So have a look, have a think. Give you a few minutes and then we'll have a look. Remember your steps. Identify your terms, simplify each term, and then go and add or subtract your like terms. Okay, Nompumelelo, we've just done an example like this. So try and use C to help you. But I am going to explain it in a few minutes. I'm just giving everyone a chance. So try and use C to help you. And then we'll have a look. Guys, like in the chat, if it's not appropriate and it's not relating to this, we'll just put you in the waiting room or remove you. So focus. All right, 30 seconds, then I'm going to go and have a look. So if you are feeling a bit confused, this is now where you need to start listening when I start going through it. Okay, let's have a look, grade 8. So if we go over to this question, I'm just going to take this red block off. We've got two terms, term 1, term 2. I know that because this plus is separating my terms. So very important that we know what separates our terms and which terms we have. What that means is that term 1, I can't simplify. It's -5. It is what it is. But the second term I can simplify. So if we look at term 2, we've got 3 times the bracket 2x minus 4. I need to distribute the 3 into the bracket. So I've got 3 times 2x and 3 times -4. So 3 times 2x, nice and easy, plus 6x. It's a positive because it's a positive times a positive. And then 3 times -4. Positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 4 is 12. So this is -12. Our very last step that we do, step number 3, is we find our like terms. So the -5 and the -12 are both constants. They are like terms. And then we've got 6x. Now again, if you want to put them together, so -5, -12 plus 6x, so that your like terms are grouped, that is fine. But again, grade 8, you don't have to do it. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It is helpful sometimes to make sure you are adding all of your terms. So -5 minus another 12, -17. And then we've got that plus 6x. Now, guys, if you had written this in another order, so 6x minus 17, that's fine. You still have a positive 6x. You still have the -17. That is absolutely fine. So either one of those would be acceptable. We would have no issues with either of them. But at the end of the day, identify your terms, simplify each term, and then add or subtract your like terms. Nice one, Pumalelo, well done. Okay, so guys, screenshots. And again, if you've got questions, ask me. Otherwise, I think we're going to take a little brain break, and then we're going to carry on. So if you've got questions, raise your hand, ask. Otherwise, we're going to do a brain break, and then we will have a look at one or two more examples before we finish off. Okay. Right, so brain break. Just had to find my brain break. A little bit different today. We have got to guess the phrase or guess the saying. Let's hope I remember all of them, because you know that I'm not good at these, but let's try. So you've got 6 guess the phrases. So in the chat, you can guess the phrase, just put the number so that we know which one it is that you're guessing for. But there's 6 phrases here, and I want you to tell me what the phrase is. These are called dingbats. I did not know that. I don't know if it's just me who did not know that, but I did not know these things were called dingbats. It seems like a really weird word for them, which is why I think it upsets me so much, because it just doesn't make sense. Okay, it says, nice. The root of the problem for the first one, the square root of the problem. So the root of the problem of a or the problem, doesn't really matter. Turtle's also got the second one, all aboard. All is on top of board, so all aboard. They're not as easy as they look. I find these things so hard. My kids would come with them at school, and I just would have to be like, nope, not me. I'm not the person to ask. Okay, one more minute. Oh, nice. Line dancing. There's a line through the word dancing for 6. So this is line dancing. Omfa, nice. Water under the bridge. We've got 2 more, guys. Let's see. Nice, Motabang. C is on its side. So this is seaside. Nice, Omfa. Well done. Okay, 1 more minute, and then I'm going to give you the fifth one. Close, Omfa. But 5 is shot in the dark, because the background is dark. So shot in the dark. It's like when you just take a wild guess at something. It's called a shot in the dark. Oh, nice. You're under very close. Right, guys, well done. Okay, I hope you've had a stretch. You have got 16 minutes. You can do it. Let's practice some more of this. So let's have a look at question D here. Made some choices with D. Right, so question D, a little bit different from the first three that we've done because now we've got a fraction. Okay, but it doesn't change the steps that we follow. We identify our terms, we simplify each term, and then we go and add or subtract our like terms. Now, when we get to step, okay, let's maybe do step 1 first, I suppose. So remember, step 1 is identify your terms. And to do that, we need to use the plus and minus signs in the expression, but we ignore any plus or minus sign inside a bracket or a fraction. So that means I'm actually ignoring that negative. I've got no other plus or minus signs. So this whole fraction, this whole thing is actually just one term. I'm working with one term. Okay. So now that I've done that, I need to go on to my second step and I need to go and simplify each term. Good, Lwanle. It's called a monomial. So guys, a one-term expression is called a monomial. Okay, now remember I said to you, if we scroll back to the very, very first question that I did, when we simplify each term, things that you're looking out for are distribution, exponents, fractions. We now have a fraction situation here. So this is what we need to deal with. Now, when you've got a fraction, I'll go back to the joke in a second. Let me just do this. When we've got a fraction, guys, things are a little bit different. Whenever you have a fraction, what you need to remember is that you can separate the fraction. So what I mean by that is when you've got one or more terms, like we do in the numerator, we've got two terms in the numerator. When we've got two or more terms sitting in our numerator all over one denominator, it means that there is a common denominator. And so what it means is that we can split our fraction and both terms in our numerator are over 4. Now, this way that I'm doing it now will work for any fraction. There is a second way that you can do this, which I think some of you have done, which is fine, but I want to show you the way that will work for any fraction. So in order for us to complete step 2, we're going to separate our fractions. That means we take 16x, and that's divided by 4, and the minus 8x divided by 4. We split it. Once we've separated our fraction, what we're going to do is exactly what step number 2 says, is we're going to simplify each term. So we're going to simplify each fraction that we have now gotten through separating the fraction. Okay? So if we look at fraction number 1, guys, let's focus. Fraction number 1 is 16x divided by 4. Remember, signs, numbers, variables. Positive divided by a positive is a positive. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And then we have that x. So this first term simplifies to 4x. The second fraction is that negative 8x over 4. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then we have that x. So my second fraction simplifies to negative 2x. We check for like terms, as we always have to do that. We can actually see that they're both like terms. They are like terms to each other. And so we can subtract. 4x minus 2x gives us 2x. Now, if you notice that 16x and 8x were like terms and you first subtracted them and then you simplified, that's fine. The reason I'm showing you this way is because that won't necessarily always be the case. So we won't always give you like terms in the numerator, and then you have to separate the fraction. So this way will work for any fraction that you have and how to separate it. Okay, so screenshot, otherwise ask if you've got any questions, but I'm going to give you one to try by yourselves. Actually, I'm going to give you 2 to try by yourselves. So screenshots, and then I'm going to move over to give you 2. Watobe?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
So do we have to split the coefficients and then we divide them?
So we're not splitting the coefficients. Remember, the coefficients are 16 and negative 8. We are dividing them by 4, but we're splitting the terms in the numerator. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, I think so, ma'am.
Okay, so basically what we're splitting are the terms in the numerator. So we're splitting the 16x and the minus 8x. They have to keep the x's
Oh.
because that x is part of the term.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Now I understand. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, grade 8. So, ooh, got a bit excited there. Right. These are 2 that I want you to try. So the first one, oh golly, please just, I'm going to try that again. Yes. Right, so that's the first one I want you to have a go at. And the second one I want you to try is right, so those are what, oh yes, guys, English. I want you to try those 2. I'm going to give you 5 minutes and then we'll go through them. Please remember your 3 steps. I'm going to write them at the bottom actually, so that we remember our 3. Actually, why on the bottom? Like that makes no sense. I'm going to write them on the side for you so that you remember your 3 steps. Identify your terms. Simplify each term. Remember what that means. Are you distributing? Are you dealing with fraction? And then add or subtract your like terms. Right, so remember those 3 steps. You will be able to simplify any algebraic expression if you follow them. Give those 2 a try. Always remember to take into account whether or not you've got minus signs, because that is going to affect what happens when you go and distribute. So always make sure you are double checking your signs. And guys, in the chat, although I can see most of you are already doing that, just make sure that you are numbering your answers correctly. Just remember your numbering, just so also we know what's going on. I'm going to give you 1 more minute and then we'll have a look at these two. Double check signs. And guys, again, make sure that when we go through them, you are correcting your work as we go through, because otherwise, yeah, it's pointless. We won't have learned anything if we're not correcting our work. Okay, let's have a look. So first one, identify your terms. Term 1, term 2, term 3. Term 1, I've got no issue with. It's going to stay -3. But term 2 and term 3, I need to distribute. So I need to take the 2 and multiply it in. And in the third term, I need to take the 3 and multiply it in. I'm not going to do a block this time, so hopefully you're following. For the second term, 2 times x, positive 2x, 2 times 1, 2. Third term, -3 times 2x. A negative times a positive is a negative, so -6x. -3 times -4. A negative times a negative is a positive 12. So that's step 2. We've simplified. Now we find our like terms. I've got a -3, a +2, and a 12. Those are all of my constant terms. And then I've got a 2x and a -6x. Those are my x terms. Again, grade 8, if you're more comfortable grouping them together first and then adding or subtracting, that's fine, but you don't have to. So -3 plus 2 is -1, plus 12 is 11. 2x minus 6x, -4x. If you wrote this as -4x plus 11, absolutely fine. Both have -4x, both have plus 11, no problem. Right, for the second one, what you need to notice here is that, again, you've got a fraction. You've actually only got one term because we don't care about that plus in the fraction, so it's a singular term. And so what we need to do is we need to separate our fraction. So separately, we've got 22x divided by 2 plus 8 divided by 2. 22 divided by 2, that gives us 11x. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now, guys, unlike what we had earlier, those are not like terms. Can't do anything with it. That is it. It simplifies to 11x plus 4. So always double check that you have like terms. Sometimes you won't, and it just means that you end there. You've simplified fully. But if you have like terms, you do need to add and subtract them. All right, so take your screenshots.